They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it.
Sonny Hostin just experienced the emotional equivalent of a Wi-Fi signal in a cave. Completely lost. After Charlie Kirk and Joe Rogan teamed up, her composure didn't just crack, it crumbled. What followed was a meltdown so theatrical, it had soap operas taking notes and teleprompters reconsidering their careers. The unexpected tag team of Kirk and Rogan unleashed a takedown so savage, even Sonny's most loyal defenders had to pause. With biting sarcasm and relentless jabs, they tore through her media persona, questioning everything from her moral high ground to the uncomfortable silence surrounding her husband's alleged involvement in a $450 million RICO fraud case. Wasn't just criticism, it was a complete deconstruction of her brand. Rogan brought the heat with his signature unfiltered style, while Kirk didn't hesitate to poke holes in her credibility, highlighting contradictions in her public commentary. The combo hit hard, and Sonny, normally poised and polished, visibly struggled to hold it together. The internet lit up as viewers watched the drama unfold, clip by clip, meme by meme. If public opinion is the court, this was a brutal sentencing. And while the dust may settle, this epic takedown won't be forgotten anytime soon. Grab the popcorn. This one's a classic.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sonny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
Sonny Hostin was having a typical week of televised self-congratulation, confident, composed, and comfortably nestled in her usual media bubble. Then, out of nowhere, the universe delivered a cosmic 1-2 punch that left her public image wobbling. On the political front came Charlie Kirk, the Gen Z whisperer dressed like a debate team captain with a mission. Armed with charts, stats, and the kind of over-caffeinated energy usually reserved for college finals week, Kirk didn't just disagree, he dismantled. He challenged Hostin's narratives with surgical precision, exposing cracks in her arguments, and leaving viewers with more questions than answers. Then, from the cultural corner, entered Joe Rogan, the podcast king with a mic in one hand and elk meat in the other. In classic Rogan fashion, he casually ripped apart Hostin's media persona between conversations about UFOs and cage fighting. With humor, grit, and zero patience for media hypocrisy, he made a spectacle of what he saw as contradictions in her. Public stances, especially amid the legal scandal surrounding her husband. Together, Kirk and Rogan didn't just criticize, they obliterated. Hostin's week went from routine commentary to full-blown damage control. And in the court of public opinion, it wasn't even close.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing. And I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side. We're on the right side. And if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do. And no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon Musk.
She never saw it coming, mainly because she was too busy delivering another polished monologue to a studio audience that treats echo chambers like a public service. But while the applause sign was flashing, reality was winding up a brutal wake-up. Call the first hit, the Charlie Kirk data bomb. It's always a spectacle when someone takes a break from speaking at a college campus with 3 protesters and a dog sporting blue hair, only to intellectually obliterate a national TV personality. Without even setting setting foot in the studio, Kirk dropped facts like grenades, sharp, unrelenting, and impossible to dodge. His critique cut through the noise with cold precision, leaving Sonny's carefully curated takes wobbling under the weight of actual statistics. What made it even more devastating was the fact that Kirk didn't need theatrics, just logic, receipts, and a willingness to challenge the media narrative. In one swing, he exposed the shaky foundation of Hostin's arguments, pulling the rug out from under a platform built on self-righteous certainty, and this was just the opening act. While Sonny basked in studio applause, the conversation outside, her bubble had already shifted, and not in her favor. The echo chamber cracked, and the real world came flooding in.
The point I'll say is this, is Sonny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue. I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more.
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk, never one to hold back what anyone with an economics degree and a hint of pattern recognition is already thinking, delivered a takedown with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball. He laid bare the blueprint of elite media detachment, tone deaf, and out of touch, and insulated by applause. And who better to symbolize that echo chamber than Sonny Hostin, the self-appointed high priestess of progressive posturing? With each point, Kirk peeled back the layers of polished rhetoric to reveal the hollow core beneath. It wasn't just critique, it was demolition, and the media cathedral trembled with every word.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here.
Well, it is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies-infested henhouse.
Charlie Kirk didn't even have to say Sonny Hostin's name. He just unpacked the overstuffed suitcase of bad takes that fly first class on The View. Talking points like voter suppression is everywhere, conservatives hate minorities, and the all-time favorite, Republicans want to drag us back to 1952. Then he did what no clapping studio audience ever dares. He brought the receipts, real numbers, not recycled slogans. Hard data that bounced off Sonny's opinions like Nerf darts off a brick wall. Kirk highlighted the growing shift of minority voters toward conservatism, because shockingly, not everyone enjoys being patronized by millionaire TV personalities who pretend they understand the price of groceries. He dug even deeper, exposing the absurdity of media elites lecturing America about oppression from their Manhattan balconies while sipping almond milk lattes. Then came the elitism nuke, Sonny perched comfortably in the penthouse of media. Royalty became the perfect example of pundits who confuse having a producer in their ear with being a public intellectual. Kirk didn't just call out the hypocrisy, he mapped it. These are the same voices mistaking their tax bracket for moral authority. It's like taking budgeting advice from someone who thinks Whole Foods is a discount store.
And the nerve of this woman to whom the country has given so much to try to dump on people who didn't go to college. Look at you. Look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sonny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, it's or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
Charlie Kirk's takedown of Sonny Hostin wasn't loud or theatrical. It was precise, methodical, and almost academic in its delivery. He didn't go after her character, her style, or even her intelligence. He aimed straight for the foundation of her public persona, credibility, and that's what made it sting. Kirk exposed the widening gap between Hostin's brand of politics and the reality most Americans live in. If this were a boxing match, the towel would have already been thrown. own. But that was only round one. Then came Joe Rogan, the intellectual barroom bouncer of American culture. No suit, no graphs, no PowerPoint. Just raw instinct, common sense, and a microphone. Rogan didn't show up with a lecture. He showed up like it was open mic night at the Cultural Octagon. His shirt was probably optional, but his clarity was weaponized. While Kirk dissected the ideology, Rogan went for the absurdity of the medium itself. He called out shows like The View for what they really are, group therapy for people allergic to self-awareness, packaged as serious journalism. His takedown wasn't angry, it was funny, shrugged off mockery wrapped in sharp observation. The media elite's Sonny floats among, Rogan's weapon of choice, common sense, is practically contraband. He mocked the hollow performance of virtue signaling, comparing it to an emperor not only parading around naked, but hosting a serious panel on the ethics of swimwear. In minutes, Rogan did what a room full of pundits can't. He cut through the noise. No cue cards, no applause signs. Just truth served with a side of sarcasm. Together, Kirk and Rogan didn't just challenge Hostin, they cracked the entire illusion of elite media credibility. And once the mask slips, it rarely goes back.
The episode of you when you're on The View, when you were running for president, you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please, let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. And then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
That red hat that says "Make America Great Again." Might as well just put a sticker on the hat.
Joe Rogan, with his trademark blend of gym locker room wisdom and podcast philosopher cool, didn't just take aim at Sonny Hostin. He questioned the entire ecosystem that allowed media figures like her to become cultural gatekeepers in the first place. While Sonny clutches her pearls over hashtags and performs outrage for the camera, Rogan is out here dismantling the very foundation of her brand, the idea that she's a voice for the people, when in reality, she's often just the loudest voice in the room, making everything about herself. Rogan contrasted that with his own platform, conversations with people who've actually lived through real crisis, made tough choices, and didn't run their thoughts by a publicist before speaking. The difference was jarring, where Sonny and her peers treat pain, poverty, and politics like segments on a daytime game show. Rogan engages with these topics unfiltered, often laughing at the insanity rather than pretending to float above it. And the best part, he never had to say her name. That's the power of a roast so precise that the target flinches without being directly hit. Rogan called out how talk shows like The View have devolved into echo chambers of elite self-importance, where lived reality is replaced with polished sound bites and moral superiority is scripted in advance. Where Charlie Kirk used data and analysis to dismantle the ideology, Rogan used mockery to reveal the absurdity. One brought receipts, the other brought the cultural mirror. The result was the same. A media personality who built her image on being untouchable now looked like a parody of herself, an unchallenged voice suddenly exposed as hollow. It wasn't just a critique, it was a cultural correction, and Rogan delivered it with a smirk and a mic.
Talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this, and as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it, but we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last weekend.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets almost poetic. Two men, vastly different in style, approach, and vibe, somehow aligned like a cosmic reckoning. Charlie Kirk, sharp and methodical, didn't even know Joe Rogan was coming. Rogan, casual and cutting, wasn't. Building on Kirk's points, but together, they accidentally synchronized like a lunar eclipse of accountability. One brought the PowerPoint, the other brought the punchlines. And without ever stepping into the same room, they didn't just challenge Sonny Hostin's credibility. They tore down the set, flipped the couch, and walked out without so much as calling an Uber. Then came the internet. Oh, the gloriously petty internet. When a daytime TV host's worldview gets tag-teamed from both the academic podium and the podcast mic, the memes practically write themselves. Reaction videos exploded across YouTube. Twitter threads comparing Kirk's dismantling to a graphic grad school thesis and Rogan's to a no-holds-barred roast went viral. TikTokers turned the takedowns into duet performances, complete with dramatic reenactments in sweatpants. Sunny didn't respond, and really, how could she? This wasn't a debate. It wasn't a conversation. It was a public audit of her brand, and the receipts were damning. Her defenders couldn't even spin it because the attacks weren't personal. They were substantive. No jabs at her style, no cheap shots at her tone. Just a deep dive into the hollow core of a media persona built on network-funded righteousness. In the end, it was less a takedown and more a revelation, and no applause sign could drown it out.
I get it. I also hate Joy Behar. So I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird. So I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View. Because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View.
Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's clip is now making the rounds in high school debate clubs as a master class in dismantling an argument without ever raising your voice. It's poised, factual, and devastatingly calm. Joe Rogan's podcast moment. It's racking up replay numbers so fast, Spotify execs are likely high-fiving in boardrooms. And Sunny Hostin, she's trending, but not the good kind. More like the please change the topic before this gets a sequel kind. What makes this whole spectacle so rare is how perfectly political precision and cultural instinct aligned. To dismantle not just a person, but a narrative. Even rarer, it was done without venom, without confrontation, and without ever saying her name. Charlie Kirk and Joe Rogan didn't destroy Sunny Hostin by calling her out directly. They torched the entire media world she represents. A world where polished talking points replace critical thinking, where applause cues stand in for real public opinion, where moral outrage is scheduled between commercial breaks. Together, they expose that glitter-covered echo chamber for what it truly is: shallow, self-important, and detached from the people it claims to speak for. They didn't just puncture a TV persona, they cracked the veneer of an entire class of pundits whose only qualification is being in the right studio with the right outrage queued up. Same target, different tools. It was like sending a drone strike and a barroom brawl to the same location, and both somehow leveling the building. And just like that, the illusion collapsed. Not with a scream, but with a smirk and a mic.
You get people thinking, if you could stop Hitler by any means necessary, wouldn't you stop Hitler? And so they equate Donald Trump with Hitler and go, here you go, this is our modern Hitler. Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it, because it's so
on TV,
crazy.
she said
on television.
Charlie Kirk showed up in classic form, navy blazer, sharp haircut, and the confident air of someone who's memorized not just the Constitution, but the fine print most people skip. His delivery was all precision, no fluff. He didn't take wild swings. He methodically dismantled the pillars of Sunny Hostin's public persona. Curated outrage, elite detachment, and the TED Talk level overestimation of her cultural influence. He never had to say her name. That was the brilliance. His political sniper fire tore through her ideology like it was stitched together from recycled View scripts. Then, cue the smoke machine. Enter Joe Rogan. No stats, no suit, no script. Just the laid-back intensity of a high school gym coach who moonlights as your friend's favorite conspiracy realist. While Kirk worked the chalkboard, Rogan kicked down the door with a beer in one hand and a sarcastic, "You actually believe this stuff?" in the other. Rogan didn't argue, he vibe-checked. His power wasn't in policy, it was in cultural instinct. He didn't debate Sunny, he pointed out how absurd it is that her media bubble still thinks it has a monopoly on truth. Where Kirk brought arguments, Rogan brought the collective eye roll of middle America and every Uber driver who's ever shouted at NPR.
I mean, The View has to be, if you average out The View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin's
You think it's
dumb.
deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on, for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out.
Joe Rogan didn't even need to say Sunny Hostin's name. He went straight for the culture she represents. The plastic pundits who soak themselves in self-importance, recite rehearsed talking points, and can't answer a tough question without checking in with their publicists. That's where the real gut punch landed. Not with anger, but with sharp mockery. Because while you can debate data, you can't debate being laughed at, and laughter cuts deeper than any argument. Here's the twist. These two takedowns, Charlie Kirk's and Joe Rogan's, weren't overlapping. They complemented each other perfectly, like a left jab followed by an unexpected steel chair. Kirk's audience, college conservatives, fed-up independents, and your uncle who quotes Milton Friedman just for fun, watch their ideological adversaries get shredded by logic and cold hard numbers. Meanwhile, Rogan's followers, Spotify listeners, comedians, MMA junkies, and tired millennials just wanted to understand how someone with that much makeup could still pretend to be oppressed on daytime TV. So the same person took two brutal L's from two completely different battlefields. This wasn't a coordinated attack, it was cosmic coincidence. A perfect storm of logic meeting laughter. The collision of too much unreality with too much honesty hit hard because you don't expect a politician's carefully crafted PowerPoint and a laid-back stoner's stand-up routine to land on the same truth. But they did. Sunny Hostin just happened to be standing in the epicenter of that inconvenient truth. The media bubble she floated in didn't just pop, it imploded. She didn't get canceled or silenced. Instead, she got understood by everyone, and nobody liked what they saw once the glitter wore off. Two men, one in a suit, the other in a hoodie, traveled very different paths, reason and ridicule, and accidentally landed on the same punchline. Sunny Hostin isn't just out of touch, she might as well be in a different time zone. What happens now? Probably nothing. Sunny will keep pretending none of this happened. The applause sign will keep flashing, the coffee will keep flowing, and daytime TV will march on as usual. But something has changed. You can't unsee what Kirk and Rogan revealed. Once the curtain is pulled back, it doesn't close again. Sunny may never publicly acknowledge the meltdown, but the internet already has. The memes, the clips, the side-by-side edits, they're all archived, ready to be replayed every time someone tries to say, but she makes good points. She doesn't need to break down on air. The breakdown has already happened. Quiet, invisible, total, and delivered by two men who couldn't be more different but somehow agreed on the comedic tragedy of Sunny Hostin's daytime enlightenment tours. One moment, she's the moral compass of daytime TV. The next, she's the punchline in a hemispheric demolition. No rebuttals, no responses. Just the sound of ideology shattering under the weight of common sense and cold, hard data. Now, excuse us while we rewatch those clips for the 11th time and laugh like it's the first.